Well, welcome everybody to episode 21 of the Hunt Backcountry podcast. Tonight it's just Steve and I with a uncut episode, if you will. Just Steve and I hanging out, kind of debriefing on a few things. Just getting back into the swing of the new year. We have some awesome guests coming up, but just some cool topics that we could chat about tonight. Just getting back from the ATA show and things like that. But first, Steve, wanted to announce the giveaway of the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers giveaway that we did. You know, going back several episodes when we had Lan Tawny from Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and encouraged you guys to join or renew your membership to Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. And to be honest with you, I know you mentioned it too, Steve, the response was awesome. Like, it was surprising how many emails we got and how many new members and guys renewing. So it was pretty cool to see, for sure.
Yeah, I was frankly blown away by the response. It was awesome. I mean, we had one guy signed up for a life membership, right? And just, I don't know how many countless people signed up and renewed. And it was just awesome to see. It's such a great organization. And for us to be able to do a podcast and help support it, you know, I think it's just awesome.
Yeah. And not to jump ahead here to ATA, which we'll get to, but honestly, one of my highlights of ATA was meeting Land there and being able to hang out. You know, you mentioned you had met him, you know, kind of briefly in the past. I had never met him besides just talking to him for the podcast. So it was the first time I got to meet him, shake his hand. We ended up going to dinner and grabbing a couple drinks, and it was cool, man. Like, what they're doing is so exciting, and just the people, not only Land and Ty, and just hearing about all of the people involved in that organization. It's kind of cool. You know, they're young, they're doing big things. It's just, it's really, really neat, for sure.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Love what they're doing.
John Hansen, you're the lucky one, who won the SNS $50 gift card. So we'll be sure to shoot you an email, but just wanted to announce that so you all knew, the listeners, and and more importantly, thank you guys for the response. I hope that, you know, you see the value in the membership to Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Now that you are a member, you'll start getting their publication, things like that, which is a great quarterly magazine. So, just want to throw that out there. So definitely stay tuned. We'll do more giveaways and things in the future, but that was certainly, one that we're really excited about, just with the way that you guys received it and responded to it. So thank you guys for that.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
So, diving into the new year, Steve, I'm going to put you on the spot. You know, one thing we always say in the podcast, and you know, don't shy away from, but don't talk about a ton, is EXO mountain gear. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of want to dive into that now. You know, we're in a new year. You know, you're already getting the emails of guys kind of wondering what's up and things like that. So if you could, you know, without spilling all the beans, giving away too many details and features, could just kind of give us a roadmap maybe of what's new for EXO in 2016.
So we're working on some new themes. One of those will be a 2,000 cubic inch bag that, you know, for the guys that are, you know, we have a lot of guys that buy our pack for day hunting, and frankly, Lenny and I designed it for backpacking. You know, that's what we love to do, and It just happens to compress up really nicely and work great for day hunting. But we get a lot of requests for a bag that's in that 2,000 cubic inch range, you know, when you're just going out for the day. So we've been working and prototyping that for really the last year. You know, it's kind of a long evolution of, we just have so many ideas going through our head, and we'd sew something up and we think it's cool, and then like the next week, you know, and some other cool idea jumps in our head and we try to incorporate it, and it's this battle of trying to get as many features into the pack as we possibly can, but we always strive to just keep things really simple and functional, because it's really, really easy to overcomplicate it. You know, if you're just trying to achieve this one cool feature for how a bow would attach, or you know, or how you carry your spotting scope, and then it makes everything else so just complicated. So we're always trying to keep that in mind, and it's a fun, you know, kind of balancing act almost of cramming as much as we can in there, still keeping it lightweight, functional. So we're pretty excited about that. We'll have it ready. The only show we're doing this year, as far as a trade show, will be the Hunt Expo in Salt Lake. I believe that's like February 10th, 11th, 12, 13, something like that. So we'll be down there. We'll have the new bag with us. And then we have another accessory, which I can't quite spill the beans on yet. We're really excited about it. And
It's going to be good.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. Some guys are going to dig it for sure. And there's some accessories that go along with that accessory. And yeah, we're really excited. I actually had that out today. Part of my, a rough life I have, I guess sometimes, is I had 115 pounds in the pack today and hiked 5 miles with our new accessory, just to just kind of doing finalized testing on it, durability testing and stuff like that. So legs are a little tired,
Yeah.
but it was a good hike, good workout.
Rough day at the office, I guess,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. So, and then we got some other accessories we're working on that all just kind of complement the pack and stuff like that. So, no major overhaul changes. 3500 bag and 5500 bag will still be there. Same frame, just some new things to go along with it. So we're excited. It's been 2 years now of selling them, and frankly, it's just been an awesome kind of roller coaster ride so far, and we're looking forward to continuing it.
Yeah, for sure. And I know this was hinted at, but just to make it super clear for guys, the day pack that you were talking about, that's obviously going to integrate with the existing frame. So everybody out there who has a 35 or a 55, they're going to be able to just buy this day pack bag and use the same frame, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's one thing we've everything attaches and works with past versions. So the 2015 frame, which will be the same frame for 16, and our 2014 frame, this new bag will attach to all that. So yeah.
That's going to be killer. I know, there's so many guys, as much as we pretend that we all want to say we go out and hunt the backcountry and we're all out there for a week at a time, most of us don't. Like, some of us get that week, some of us go for long weekends, and some of us are, weekend warriors who sneak out for a day or a simple overnighter and certainly hunt hard. And so that day pack's going to be cool. And then, of course, with that day pack, you still have the frame that, as soon as you get something down, you're ready to do some serious load hauling for sure.
Yeah. That's definitely the beauty of that system is this combo is going to be, depending on our last few things we're doing here, right around 4 pounds for the whole setup. So it's as light as really any quality day pack out there. And you're going to strap 120 pounds to it and hike out without any issues. So it's pretty good balance of being able to do a lot of things and being versatile.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, if you can spill the beans on it or not, but just a thought that popped into my head. Is the day pack, you're still going to be able to basically utilize the load shelf and all that?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'll detach from the frame, pivot off the bottom, and then you'll be able to sandwich, your boned out meat and cape horns, all that stuff in between the two.
Yeah. That's going to be awesome, man.
Yeah, we're excited.
Cool. So let's catch up on what we just got back from, I guess last week, and that is the ATA show. For those of you that don't know, it's the Archery Trade Association show. So it's basically anything and everything, in terms of archery, bow hunting, target archery. I mean, literally everything you could think of that's even related to that is all going to be under the roof at the ATA show. It's a private show. It's meant for all manufacturers to come and be exhibitors and sort of display what's new for the new year. And then dealers attend either to just kind of see what's new, to connect with manufacturers. And then there's a bunch of actual order writing going on during the show. So, all kinds of new cool stuff gets released and announced there. It's a great time, as we already mentioned, to kind of connect with people in the industry, like hanging out with Land and, seeing a bunch of friends that we have in the industry and just hanging out. That's certainly one of the highlights for me, is just connecting with everybody for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the ATA shows, it's just a flat out blast. I get to go to SHOT Show. I'm going down there next week, actually taking my wife down to Vegas, and SHOT Show is a gigantic show. I mean, there's just people everywhere. The aisles are packed. But ATA show is, for as big as it is, it's still low key enough where you can walk into any company's booth and talk to the people and develop relationships. It's just such a great show. And like you said, I enjoy going out and having beers almost more than the show aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny too. Rob was along with us, who's working with us in S Archery now, and it was his first show, and it was kind of the first day where he was like, "Oh, look, there's so and so. Oh, wait, there's so and so." And then within the first 15 minutes, he's like, "I've seen I think every person I've ever seen on TV already at the show, and they're just walking around."
Yeah, pretty much everybody's there. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, both of us actually, for the last handful of years, every year when the ATA show rolls around, we've been working. We've been in a booth, working with a manufacturer. You were with Solid, and I was usually with Elite Archery. And so this is the first year and a handful of years that, by happen chance, both of us got to actually kind of go, enjoy, and walk around. And certainly one of the highlights of the show for sure is, obviously it's about archery, is all of the bows. I mean, every bow manufacturer that you can think of, from the big guys to the little guys that you might not even heard of. This year, for the first time in a long time, Matthews was there. Historically, for the last, I don't know, it's probably been 10 years, Steve? They've had kind of their own deal. And
I think it's been 10 years or so. They decided to do their own Matthews show, and then for whatever reason, they came back this year.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody was there this year. So I don't know where we want to begin, but we both spent quite a bit of time shooting pretty much every bow in the building, which was so much stinking fun. The way that it's set up, listeners, if you can imagine, is basically the perimeter, the edges of the show floor. They have shooting lanes. And so, a bow company like Elite or Hoyt or Matthews, they're going to have their booth, if you will, where they have bows on display and, their representatives and etc. But really where you want to go shoot is out on the edges. Well, the cool thing is you can basically just walk the edges, the perimeter of the building, and go from one shooting lane to the next of every bow manufacturer and just shoot. So I guess, of course, let's start with the good, right? What are some of the bows that stand out for you, maybe that you're already familiar with, or even some of the surprises for you?
Yeah, for sure. It was, like I said, Mark, going in, that was one of my main goals. Is I just wanted to go shoot every bow in the place, because I haven't had that opportunity to do it in a long time, and just feel, just shoot them side by side, one after another. And so the top of my list at the end of it, the Hoyt Carbon Defiant 34 was probably top to bottom my favorite bow at the show. Loved the draw cycle, loved how stable it felt at full draw, loved how it just kind of held. The valley let off and on the shot, I was really impressed. It wasn't quite as dead in the hand as I was expecting, but it was still really, really good. I mean, as good as anything I've shot, frankly, but I was expecting just like a thump, and it had a little bit of vibration, but very, very minimal.
Do you think that's maybe you getting used to maybe a lighter weight bow? I mean, they're bare bows, right? And so, lighter weight, it's a good, quarter of a pound, if not more, maybe, than what you're used to shooting.
Oh, yeah, more than that. Yeah,
closer to half pound, probably.
Yeah, just in the bow itself, and then no accessories on it, which will, help dampen everything down. So, let's see. After that, the Elites. I shot the Synergy last year, and I really liked that bow. I personally had some target panic issues last year where just couldn't get settled in, so I kind of wanted to try shooting some other things. And the Energy 35 from Elite was at the top of my list. Shot their new Impulse. It was really decent draw cycle for the speed that it gets. I'm leery of a 6-inch brace height, which, just from past experience, I always try to stay around 7.
Yeah.
The only thing what I didn't like about the Impulse was it just dropped kind of harshly into the valley. So right at the very end, it rolled over and rolled over pretty aggressively, which translates into why you're getting more speed, shorter brace height and more aggressive cam.
Yeah, that means it's picking up energy on the way back. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so it's holding that draw, your draw force curve as long as possible, and then dropping into that valley pretty sharply. So, I after the shot, it held and shot really, really nice. It was just that draw, that last 5 inches of the draw cycle just jumped in there. But shooting the Energy 35, it has not quite as an aggressive cam, a 7-inch brace height, and it was just smooth as butter. Which I shot the Energy 32 a couple of years ago and loved that bow. So, so far, yeah, the Hoyt, the Elite. The one that really surprised me was the Expedition, and I actually can't remember. Is it Eccentric?
Yes. Yeah. I think it was the Eccentric that you were shooting.
I was really impressed with that bow. It wasn't like a 10 in any category, but it was like an 8.5, 9 across the board. I was very, very impressed with that bow.
Yeah, I think, I remember talking with you about that, and I think I even mentioned is like, that was, I can't say it was my favorite bow, but that was the one bow that I shot where there was no one thing that stuck out as like, oh, I kind of don't like that.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I wish that was, different or whatever. It was like nothing was, jaw-dropping, but nothing was absolutely a downside to it. I mean, it felt great. It shot great. It was good on the shot. It was good to hold. They're very nice for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It was just like just a solid bow. No glaring, like, holy cow, I love this. Other than the speed that they claim, which it's like they say low to mid 340s out of a 7-inch brace height, which I'd like to shoot that through a chrono. There's not any bows out there getting 340s with 7-inch brace height. So if they are, that's pretty incredible.
Right.
I'd love to grab one and shoot through a chrono and test it. So
speaking of questionably exaggerated speeds, just to the other side of Expedition. What's up with I'm just drawing a blank now.
Obsession?
Yes. Yeah.
The Obsession was up there too.
Obsession, it felt fantastic, but
awesome.
It was like they're claiming it's a 360 something.
Yeah, I don't know. I said it. If they were saying it was 340, I'd be like, damn, this thing shoots amazing.
Yeah.
And then just saying 360, I can't remember what bow it is, but maybe somebody out there is going, no, hold on a minute, those bows do shoot that fast. But if it does, I would be shocked.
Yeah, I think it was a DEFCON. They had a DEFCON 6 and a DEFCON 7, I think. And I think it's, the DEFCON 6, the shorter brace height, that was getting those 360 speeds. But I still think on the 7-inch bow, they were claiming something like 352 or something. Both numbers just seemed crazy. Not reasonable, especially considering the way it felt. Like, I question those speeds, period, on any bow. But if it's gonna get there, it's gotta feel much worse than those bows drew.
Yeah. I've just pulled up their website. So DEFCON 6, 6-inch brace height, 356 IBO.
That's not happening. I don't know.
Yeah.
Obsession, feel free to prove it to us for sure.
Yeah,
but
please. Because other than that, the bow drew, shot, noise, hand shock, everything was incredible. I was really impressed with it.
Yeah.
But,
both of us, and I think we mentioned this, I guess it was in the Hoyt podcast with Matt just a couple episodes back, but, both of us tend to stick to the 7-inch brace heights bows, but I used to say that's the norm, but after seeing all these bows, I don't know if it was just the ones that they're promoting because of the speed or really that, that tide is sort of shifting, but it seemed like there's, as many 6-inch brace height bows out there as 7s.
Yeah, there
and
was.
Even some 5s, really.
There was. I mean, definitely, I would say in general, 3, 4, 5 years ago, it was kind of a speed game, like who can produce the fastest bow. And then it seemed like the last few years, it's like, okay, we're fast now. Let's back off and get a better shot, better draw cycle, et cetera. And then this year, there's a lot of 6-inch brace height bows out there. So, marketing kind of goes back and forth, and it's really up to the consumer to decide, go shoot and decide what they want.
Yeah.
So what was next? Expedition, and then the G5 Prime. That bow is, frankly, I've never gotten a chance to shoot one. Always been intrigued by it. I've obviously been an Elite fan for a long time. I love binary cams. I know how to tune them and work with them really well. And that G5, with their dual track cams, and they have the flex cable guard, kind of always intrigued me about reducing some of the torque issues that create third axis adjustments and things like that. I was really impressed with it. I take that back. A few years ago, I shot a G5 Prime bow. I don't remember which one it specifically would have been, but I remember the draw cycle being really, really stiff, especially for the speeds, because it was like a low 330s IBO or something.
Right. And was that before the dual cam, like the dual track?
No,
They
that
still
was
had
dual
it?
track cam.
Okay.
I don't know what model it is. I should look it up. But so their new one, which is the Rise, I was very, very impressed with that bow. Still a stiff draw, but very smooth. I'm sure if you plotted the draw force curve, you're not going to see any humps. Definitely, listeners, you don't want to see a hump at the end of it. At least I don't, just because it's like at the end of it, at the end of your draw cycle, you're kind of losing strength, and that little bit of a hump always seems to be perceived, even if it's like a half a pound or a pound jump at the end, it's perceived as like a 5 pound increase. And
Yeah.
for me, I just want that just kind of nice and flat and then taper off down into the valley.
Yeah, I would say that prime, I mean, it kind of stacked up front a little bit and felt, a little
Yep.
bit stiff there. But yeah, as you mentioned, the further you get back, it still just transitioned really well.
Yeah, I would say it's a stiff but smooth, like kind of consistent draw cycle. So it's predictable.
Right.
It felt great. I guess probably the least hand shock on a bow that I felt at the whole place.
Oh, really?
For me, it was just once I shot it was just like thud, like nothing happened. And I don't know how much that matters as far as accuracy or whatever, but it feels nice. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, pretty similar. The Hoyt, I was frustrated. I'm the lefty, and so I go to these shows, or anytime I go to a dealer, and I'm always the redheaded stepchild, hoping that they'll have something to shoot. And not only am I left-handed, but I'm kind of tall and long, so there's just not many like 30 and a half inch left-handed bows sitting around. So I spent most of the time shooting any left-handed bow I could get my hands on. Most of the time it was in like 28 inches. So there was, I never fully got comfortable with most of the bows that I shot. The Hoyt, I shot it and they only had one of the shorter axle to axle lengths, which I don't prefer. I liked it. I drew the 34 back right-handed just to kind of feel the cams. On the shot, I can't really get an impression, because everything just feels wonky being left-handed and shooting a right-handed bow. But I was impressed with their draw cycle. It's been a couple years since I've shot a Hoyt. I didn't really care for the cams previously. I also love that they have the draw stop option now. Coming again from being an elite shooter for so long, I've always loved that about elites, and obviously a bunch of other bows do that too, but I'm so used to that rock solid back wall that it's just really tough for me to shoot anything else. And so I'm really glad to see that is an option on the Hoyts now. I guess going in the same order like you, the elite that still stands out for me, the one I've been shooting for 2 years now, is the Energy 35. Just absolutely love that bow. Like you, I shot the Synergy, had the opportunity to shoot that as well last year, but stuck with the Energy 35 as my primary bow. If I were going to buy another elite tomorrow, even with all the new stuff out, like the Energy 35, there's just, for me, for what I like, it has the best combination of everything, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Expedition, again, as I mentioned, there was like not one thing that stood out as a downside. Really liked it. There was no one thing that made me fall in love with it either, but I'd absolutely say it's a great solid choice in a bow for sure. But yeah, I mean, just it really close to what you said. The Obsessions felt great. I just kind of, I question everything when I see those numbers. I'm like, what else are they hiding? Or maybe they're not hiding anything. Prove us wrong. I guess the one thing we didn't mention, Matthews being there. Shot the Matthews. I shot the Halon and the Halon X and kind of all their different flavors and variations of the Halon. Just personally wasn't a fan. Just was not my deal at all in multiple ways. And again, I'm not trying to be a hater. It was just, there was multiple things that was just like, okay, take this bow out of my hands. It just felt, to me, it felt very blocky for sure. Not only in the grip, but the way that even the riser balances felt blocky. Just kind of like I was holding the 2x4. And then the grip, for me, just the grip angle, it doesn't fit well. I did get a chance actually to shoot something that was in my draw length and everything else there, and shot it at a full 70 pounds. And, especially with a heavier draw weight, a full draw weight, for whatever reason, that grip angle, it was just making me, like the bow, the bottom cam was rocking forward, that top cam was rocking back. So if you can picture that, even trying to draw smooth and level, it was almost like I was being forced to kind of sky draw and point up.
Yep.
And even when I shot the lower weight bow, it did that. There's just something in me in the way that grip coordinates that it just doesn't balance.
Yeah, no,
well.
I was the exact same boat. I went to draw it back, and it just felt like the top cam was going to hit me in the head. I have no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
But it was just weird. It was just like the grip wasn't really close to the center. It was down a little bit from the center of the bow, so it just naturally wanted to pivot back towards you. And when I first went to drew it, I was like, oh, this is awkward. I'll admit been a Matthews hater for a long time. Like, one of my first jobs working in an archery shop, guys would just come in and just like, I want a Matthews. My buddy shoots a Matthews. I'm going to buy a Matthews. And I'm like, well, don't you want to shoot, X, Y, and Z brands and kind of compare them side by side? Nope, I want a Matthews. That's what I was told to buy. And so ever since then, I've just been a Matthews hater. So I probably went into it a little biased, but I just wasn't that impressed. Like I said, it was really blocky. A lot of parts and pieces going on. I'm such a, that's what I love about the elites. They're very, very, very simple. As minimal parts and pieces and moving things as possible in a bow. And it just, it felt like a 2x4 with some limbs on it for me. And so I'm sure some guys go shoot at their archery shop and absolutely love it. Just definitely wasn't for me.
Yeah. I guess beyond that, I'm thinking of back in the other corner, we're both PSC and Bowtech. I'm not a PSC hater, but at the same time, there's something about PSC bows that I've never been drawn to them, both aesthetically and then just, the times I've shot them. I can't say, the ones that I've shot there, and I don't remember exactly all the model names, but shot a few different ones, that they were really that bad. They're just one of those bows that's just like not my thing,
Yeah. Same boat as you. I shot their new carbon air, I believe it's called.
Right.
It felt good for, like I said, that's a 340 IBO bow, and it was stiff because it should be for shooting that fast.
So with that being light, because that's even lighter than I think like a Carbon Defiant. Did you notice even more hand shock or feel upon the shot with that?
So that bow, again, these are all bare bows for the most part, and so I'm sure once you slap accessories on it, deadens everything. There wasn't a lot of hand shock with that bow, but I remember there being like a thud, like you just punched a solid wall. It's just like a thud when you shot. And it was just kind of like this abrupt feeling. It wasn't like you shot and then there was like a tuning fork where you just feel this vibration going on for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But it was just a different feel than I'm definitely used to.
Mm-hmm. Almost like a little bit of a kick, if you will, or just kind of a knock. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So Bowtech, it was funny. We realized that we kind of ignored them till later in the show. We just absolutely didn't see their shooting lanes. They were kind of tucked in a corner on the other side of PSC, and I think when we were in PSC, it was so busy we didn't see past them.
Yep.
But the Bowtech, it was one of those things. I don't know if it was end of the show and I'd shot so many bows, but I shot it and I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is, the guy from Bowtech who was kind of working with me, and it's funny when you go into these booths, and I've done it for years, so I've seen both sides of it, but some guys are, hand you a bow, help you get what you're looking for, and just let you shoot and don't say anything. And then other guys are, kind of trying to tout the features and advantages and, not do a sales pitch, but, play up the bow for sure.
Right.
And this guy was one of those guys who was kind of trying to play up the bow and telling me all these great things. And I was getting ready to shoot, and he's like, oh, let me check that out real quick. And they have this in the cam. They have basically 3 different settings that you can enable. Basically a speed setting, a classic setting, and then I'm not sure if they called it the smooth setting or what it was, but it was on that smooth setting. So the easiest drawing, not the high speed, kind of the overall best feeling position of the cam. He's like, oh yeah, you'll love that. And I don't know if he got into my head, but I didn't feel like it was that smooth or anything at all. I mean, it didn't feel bad, but it's just like, if these are, if there's 3 settings in this cam and they get increasingly more aggressive, and this is the least aggressive setting, it was like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for the speeds, it was average speeds at that setting. There's smoother bows out there that I felt anyway.
Yeah, for me, I drew it back. Found most of the bows there are set at 60 pounds. There's a few companies have 70-pound bows. I'm sure they do that just because 60 pounds is going to feel super smooth, even if it's a bad draw cycle.
Sure.
But I was drawing the bow back, and I get to the last 8 inches and I feel it really stack up, and I kind of stopped drawing. And I looked, I'm visually looking up and down at the cams, thinking something's wrong. There's no way it should stack that much. And I just kept pulling, and it eventually rolled over. And when it did roll over, it was smooth, but it stacked really, really heavy there at the end. I'm sure the jaw force curve is, cruising along at 69, 70 pounds, and that last 5, 6, 7 inches, it's going to climb up to 73. And like I mentioned earlier, when you're at the back end of your draw cycle, that feels like 2 to 3 times as much weight because you're just not as your mechanics aren't working as well. You're not as strong at the back end of that. So, other than that, I mean, it held nice and shot nice. And I think I had a funky release. Next time I do that, I'm going to bring my own release, because every booth you walk into, you're grabbing a different release.
Yeah.
It's kind of awkward because half the time it's not, what you're used to. So I wasn't, other than that dry cycle, I was impressed with the bow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely, I mean, you can tell that they're well put together. They got a good design and, good engineering and things like that for sure.
Yeah. It
still amazes me that I think there's, I don't want to say a divide by any means, but there's certainly bows more on the Bowtech side, the Matthews side, that seem more engineered, that have more, as you mentioned, moving parts and pieces and all things like that. Mm-hmm. Versus, like you mentioned, the Elites are super simple. Even the Expedition is another bow that's just really streamlined and clean and super simple.
Yep.
And I think, as much as anything, some of that boils down to, I don't want to say marketing, but, I think overall bows have gotten so good that these manufacturers have to introduce solutions. And I say that term loosely. And so there's, they're engineering this gizmo and that gizmo. These simple bows, though, still shoot so dang good, know?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I've noticed more. I'm just shooting everything this year, is that there is sort of it almost looks like a different philosophy in terms of these simple bows versus these bows that, are just more complicated to try and introduce features.
Right. Yeah, being a bow manufacturer would be really tough business to be in my opinion, just because, we get it with EXO right now. I get a handful of emails every single day like, hey, when's the 2016 pack going to come out? Customers are just assuming that something new is coming as far as a total redesign. And bow manufacturers are subject to that more than anybody, in my opinion. They're expecting speeds to jump, 10 to 20 feet per second every year, and draw cycles and to get smoother and quieter and et cetera, et cetera. And that's these bows are performing so high right now. The efficiencies are about as good as they're going to get with the materials that are available. And so some companies' answer is, to market and get more, share of the market as far as selling bows. They're going to come up with gizmos and stuff like that you'll see they put on their bow for a couple of years and they abandon it and they move on to the next thing. And I do appreciate companies like Elite that seem to, be kind of more steady along with it versus trying to give you the the latest and greatest, you must buy this type thing every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that, in the last 5 years, for sure, there's been some advances, absolutely, that have made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But in shooting all of these bows this year, and then shooting, a fair amount of bows over the last couple of years, for me, in the last couple of years, there hasn't been like a huge gain,
No. Yeah.
Case in point, one of the bows I would maybe walk out of that show floor with above anything else is still a 2-year-old bow, the Energy 35.
Right.
But certainly, like, for example, the iteration before that, Elite had a bow that I loved called the Pure, but it didn't have the same takeoff angles. The limbs weren't, that band parallel design. There's certainly been improvements in the last, say, 5 years. But for me, in the last couple of years, like if I were sitting on a 2-year-old bow, in fact, I still am, I don't know that there's necessarily a massive driver to upgrade. Certainly, there's just great bows, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to try something else, though, either. And I know a ton of guys who do that. They just get a new bow every year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Try what's latest and greatest.
Yeah.
So beyond bows, it's really almost hard to explain everything that's there. I just pulled up an article from a site that had their quote-unquote best products from the ATA show, and there's everything from broadheads to whitetail decoys to fat-tired bikes, discs for your food plots for your ATV, walk-in portable coolers, software for your trail camera. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
Certainly some things are smart and innovative, and certainly some things are just gimmicky. Was there anything that you saw more on the accessories or gear side that stood out to you?
Honestly, that was my one disappointment. I remember telling Rob before on the plane flight over there that hey, it's just kind of like it's almost advertising overwhelming. I mean, you're just so bombarded with so many things in front of you that it's hard to like weed through and see the products. There's so much marketing that you walk into the doors of the place and it's like, holy cow. But I didn't see anything that kind of blew me away. It's tough. Obviously, everything's so far advanced at this point without some radical new materials coming into it. Like, how many improvements can you make to a sight or a rest or anything like that? So, I have to say I've been a little disappointed in. It definitely seems to be a trend in the industry as these big corporations buying up all these small companies.
Yep.
So you'll see this giant booth, and there's like 5 or 6 companies within that booth. And I think when something becomes corporate, you lose that kind of passion and inspiration and development for kind of new stuff, and things seem to go a little stale. I definitely saw that. I mean, there's quite a few companies out there now that have been bought up, and it's a little bit of a bummer to see.
Yeah. I think in general terms, sort of in the state of the industry, whether listeners, it sort of is, guys who don't really care, don't, pay attention, but there's multiple companies that that you might think are still independent that really aren't. And there's everything from, a larger outdoor company buying a small one and bringing it sort of under their umbrella. But then there's even things, in the past handful of years where outside investment groups who really have no chops in the outdoor industry are seeing the opportunity to sort of expand their portfolio, if you will. And so, there's even outside influences that aren't, in tune to the industry, I would say, that are getting into the industry. And so that's definitely one thing that I've seen change in the show over the years, is just that kind of conglomeration, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely the small guys out there. There still is. There doesn't seem to be as many, though,
Yeah. I guess one thing we missed at the show this year was kind of the innovation. Typically, they have like an up and coming innovation room where it's smaller companies that are just trying to get in there, and I never did get a chance to go check it out. So
Yeah.
I don't, did you get a chance to find it?
I didn't. I know that Rob made it over there. I don't know that he found anything super exciting. Not that I recall, but it's always fun to walk through there, period, whether it's something that you're personally interested in for your hunting, because every time I've been in there over the years, there's always something that's at least clever. That's at least where it's like, that good on you. Like, that's a good idea. I hope you do well. It's cool to see.
Yeah.
For sure. There was a few, I guess on my end, there's just a few little things, nothing major. We just got a chance to actually, both of us dropped by the Outdoor Edge booth, and you're showing me that you've been using their knives. I've been a Havalon guy for the last few years, and you're kind of saying you moved away from them almost because they were so freaking scary sharp. And so, showing me those Outdoor Edge, which is the same concept, replaceable blades, but it's not that super fine, scary sharp surgical steel. It's more of a traditional blade, still sharp for sure, but has a little bit more beef to it. It's actually easier to change than a Havalon. I mean, you could speak to them more than I can since you've been using them in the field. Yeah,
I've been using Havalon for the last 4 or 5 years, and I'm terrible about cutting myself and breaking blades. I mean, I love the knife because it was so freaking sharp, and it's great. But I kind of started shying away from it, just because I was cutting myself. I mean, all it takes is one little nick, and then freaking bam, you're half an inch into your finger. When we were in Alaska hunting, Lenny had just pulled his knife out of his pocket, and it was the Outdoor Edge Razor Pro. And it's similar to the Havalon. It's got a replaceable, razor sharp blade that just kind of slides in and out and connects, but how it connects is substantially different. And in your hand, it's got a good feel to it. Being an ultralight guy, I was just like, I mean, it's like 2.5 ounces or 3 ounces, maybe. I'm not exactly sure the weight, but the Havalon is super, super light. It's probably 1.5 ounces. And that was the only thing I didn't like. But other than that, I loved everything about it. So I went and picked one up and used it and liked it. And then we got S&S Archery set up as a dealer and started selling it. So I've been excited about that. And then go to the show there, and they have a new lightweight version coming out here in a few months. So it's plastic handle, but still really strong, and same blade connection, and definitely something that's going to be in my pack come this spring for bear hunting. Yeah, and cheap too. Weren't they going to be $20-$25 or something? Something, $19.99, $24.99, something like that for retail, which is just awesome. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean I freaking love how sharp Havalons are. Obviously, there's that downside, but the thing that gets me is changing the blades, and obviously it's not bad at home. But once you get your hands into an elk and that blade's, covered in fat, and then your hands are covered in blood, and then you go to change the thing, I mean, it's just downright dangerous. Yeah, for sure. And I would pack a mini multi-tool with little pliers just for that reason alone. Right. Yeah, and you're offsetting the weight savings you gain. Exactly. So yeah, I mean the Outdoor Edge, it's pretty much a push button release, right? And then it just pops right out, and the new one pops right in. It's for sure something that I'll take a closer look at. Yeah, they're pretty slick little knives. Yeah. Not quite as sharp as a Havalon, but still a lot sharper than you're gonna have your hunting knife on average. Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't say that you take a standard good traditional hunting knife, and the Outdoor Edge is probably on par. It's just not the crazy scary sharp level of a Havalon. Yep, for sure. Yeah, exactly. So other than that, Black Gold sights, they came out with their Verdict sights, which they got to send us some samples, prototypes of it back in November last year, and I think that as far as a slider sight, I've been a huge fan of the Black Gold, their Ascent and Pure series, just from a simplicity and durability and weight, and just kind of top to bottom, they're great sights. Yeah, and the Verdict is basically an equivalent of the new Ascent, right? Yeah, the Verdict, it's called the Ascent Verdict. Right, yeah. Okay. So it's still an Ascent, just the Verdict kind of sub-name. Very, very impressed with that sight. All the great features I liked in the Pure kind of trickled down into the Verdict this year, and definitely be running that on my bow. Just like a 5-pin setup. I going off, I guess, on a tangent here, but I'll run it. I like to run it 27, 40, 50, 60, 70, and then I got my slider from 70 to 100 if I need to make a long shot. Yeah, I absolutely love that sight. Spot Hog came out. I think the only thing new they had this year is they have the fast eddy and a dovetail version, which is really nice. A little bit Spot Hog sights, their slider sights are bomb proof but heavy. They came out with the fast eddy 2 years ago or last year.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of a lighter weight version of them. And then they added the dovetail version. So that's going to be cool. Trying to think what else. Ripcord, their Ace Rest. I was running that last year. Really, really happy with it. It was micro adjust. They introduced just a little bit less expensive non-micro adjust version. So the guy's looking to save, $30 or something like that. Very good option.
Yeah.
Trying to think what else.
Yeah, going back to that Ace, I mean, I tend to be one of those guys that really doesn't care about micro adjust, in terms of like, especially micro adjust individual pins on a site, for example.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on the micro adjust versus the standard non-micro on a rest? Because I know that for me, one thing where it can be really handy is just fine tuning center shot or little, paper tuning tweaks where sometimes you might want that micro adjust, but again, if you don't, you can save $30 or $40, right?
Yeah. In sites, I really could care less about micro adjusts. I'm not, when a customer calls me up and we're talking about sites, and if he's like me, where you get your bow and you get everything set up in the spring, January, February, March, and you just lock it down and you're good until hunting season. Micro adjust, it's kind of, the cons outweigh the pros. As far as the pros being able to sighting ends easier, the con is more, typically it's going to be a heavier sight and there'll be more moving parts and pieces. I'm always, just said it 100 times, just going back to keeping things simple. I would rather, mess around at the range for an extra 5-10 minutes to get sighted in and lock a screw down, not have to worry about it, versus a micro adjust piece. Or I despise like toolless adjustments, because usually that's going to be some lever that you can flick with your thumb and slide something and lock it back down. And, it's great for sighting in, but when you're out in the backcountry, I had it happen before on a site. We were riding in on horses actually, and had the bow kind of sat in front of me, and the lever got flipped over and freaking got to camp, and my sight housing was about ready to fall off. So I'd much rather have a screw that I could just lock down and not have to worry about.
Yeah.
So on a site, I don't care. On a rest, yeah, absolutely. Micro adjust is really pretty simple, especially on that Ace. It's just this little screw that kind of pivots some threads that the housing is attached to. And, a 64th of an inch makes a difference sometimes, or not, between good broadhead and flight or not. So
for sure.
Definitely a good advantage to have.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's a pretty good wrap up. I will say, for the listeners, we definitely have some, more gear talk coming for sure. Not only just to find out about new products in general, but to really dive deep into some of the reasoning for new products. Case in point, we're going to be talking with First Light really soon, about some of their lineup and the changes for this new year. And really why those changes take place. We, as always, we don't want to just talk hunting. We want to help you become a more informed hunter. So, just like Steve and I always want to learn, we want to bring you along with us. And so, there's First Light and a few other companies, connections that we made at ATA. We'll probably have some guys on the show to kind of do a deep dive for sure. But absolutely send us your feedback, unless you want to, yell at us about your favorite bow that we just down talked. I'm sorry.
I'm sure we're going to get a few emails.
Yeah, it's going to ruffle some feathers, but yeah, so for sure. Till next time, thanks for tuning in. Steve, anything else for tonight?
Not much, man. I got to go keg some beer, get some homebrew going, and go throw it in the keg and drink it here a few days. So
nice.
That's the rest of my night.
I'll be checking my mailbox for that in about a week.
Yeah, I'll send you a little growler.
All right. You guys take care. We'll talk to you next time.